Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So in the last video I was going to talk about the economy. I don't really know much about it, but it's just very depressing. With inflation being, I think it's about 8% now, and the mortgage rates going up to 6%, because the Bank of England put the interest rate up to 5%. I don't really know how it all works. It seems to be because of, I remember I studied it once, but because the interest going up high, I don't know what to do with the spending. I don't really know, but I suspect the banks are making a lot of money out of this, because especially with the mortgage things, and this is the thing that seems really unfair. You borrowed a certain amount of money, and the bank's never going to lose that amount of money because it's tied up in the house. So if you ever can't pay it, then they sell the house, and well, I suppose then they get the house plus all the money that you've paid. So they come out a winner. And obviously with the interest changing up and down, that means the amount they lent you is, well, as we all know, whenever you hire purchase, all those kinds of things, it's far going to outweigh. It seems horrible that it can change so much drastically like this. But it's just really worrying, because I mean the fixed term I'm on is coming to an end. I mean, I'm lucky to have a house, even that. I mean, I remember, it's funny, I didn't think about that until a few days ago, that I used to thought I would never own a house because it's so difficult. And it's only because of my dad that he lent me a huge amount of money for the deposit to make it bigger, so that we could actually afford that the banks would lend us the money. And now I'm lucky enough to have a house, which I thought I never would, because it just seemed impossible to get that kind of money in a deposit in the world that we're in, where now you know why I hate money so much. And then now to be in this stage where the fixed term is about to run out, and to get onto a new one, all this hassle of waiting for the 180 days, otherwise you have to pay this ERC charge, the repayment charge of thousands. It seems really unfair. That, I mean, I know they do that with mobile contracts, but it's usually like 50 quid or something, not thousands to get out of it. I guess that's to keep you in it, isn't it? It seems so unfair. And then you have to wait and hope that the Bank of England don't put any more interest up. And what wages not increasing at all. I don't know where all this increase is coming from. And then just thinking about how easy it is to lose your house based on not being able to pay this huge amount that for 5 years you've been able to pay nicely, and now suddenly from 2% is going up to 6%, and that's real money that when you're living on your wages just covering everything, or just covering bills. And now even not doing that, because everything's, the electricity's gone up, the gas has gone up. If you were on fixed terms, now you're off those fixed terms, even though it's coming down, it's not coming down that quickly. It just scares me. I just stay up all night thinking about this. And this is, I'm sure, why people, commit suicide. It feels like such a pressure, all the time, hoping that things don't change, hoping you don't lose your job, hoping, all these other variables stay the same, so that you can just ride this wave through. Some people gamble, hoping to win the national lottery or the Euro Millions, or, Hearts. What was it? Show Me a Million? Or something like that. All these different ways, hoping that will fill the gap, but it never happens. And that's why, why I've never liked money all my life. I guess because I've come from a working class family. But just for a humanity point of view, it just doesn't make sense, because it just puts all this unnecessary pressure on us that, is just paper from trees or gold from the ground, that, that we value more than each other's lives, that people will commit suicide, people will be out of their houses that they've had all their lives, with children, school children. Imagine how much disruption, how much this damages. And then, of course, we're lucky because we live in the Western world where we can own all these things. When you look at the countries that are in, like with Israel, Palestine fighting each other all the time, and the poor people having to suffer, and all the other countries where there's wars always, or famines, all these things that are, some of them you could say are, like climate change, it's ecological, and it's, in the hands of God, force majeure, as it were. But most of it isn't really, because, even that, if it's to do with our carbon and our factories and our cars, we've created that issue. But the fact is that most of the issues that we live in, that are to do with money and borders and all the stuff that I talk about, the pursuit of truth, that we created for ourselves. We created these famines because the place we found ourselves upon freely, everything here freely for each one of us, none of us can really own it because we all die. There's enough for everyone, and yet we decide to divide it up and make people pay for it, because the idea that, well, people wouldn't work for free. Well, no, that's not true. And I'm sure back at the beginning of time, we didn't have this idea of money, because we just survived, isn't it? We helped each other out. Hopefully that's what we did. But why can't we go back to that? Imagine if there was an apocalypse and everything was destroyed and there was just 1 million people left. We wouldn't be bartering about, oh, you need to pay me £10, because we've all seen The Walking Dead, we've all seen The War of the Worlds, we all see how money means nothing in those things, and even like during, in our own lifetime, seeing like in, say, COVID or the wars, how that things like money didn't, make it, governments would help out and do all these things, and everyone fought for each other. But we need to do this for humanity, for our lives. So yeah, that's my ramble on money and the system that we live in that causes all these problems. And it's just so stressful every night thinking about this. Whether, I won't be in this house next year, or where I'm going to be on the streets, or, I've come up with this podcast idea. I've got these 2 that I mean to be doing. It was called I Need to Die. I don't know when I'm going to do it, but it's like a radio drama thing. It might just be 1 part, 2 part, or whatever, or 4 part. And the idea that came to me is like, I'm worth more dead alive because of life insurance, and because of, when you work for a company, they have insurance and stuff. If I was to die, then all these problems would go away. But the fact is, I don't really want to die. I'd rather live. So this idea came into my head that I need to make this story about this man who comes into that idea of that he has to take the sacrifice for his family. That's the most, I don't know what I was watching at that time, but it said something about love, about that's what love is, sacrifice, and that he has to make the ultimate sacrifice, and the idea that he's thinking about the idea that he needs to get himself killed, run over or something, because so that he gets the money for his family. To me it felt like such a bittersweet story. It fits right into my stories of death and love and sacrifice and all that kind of stuff. And I need to make it before someone steals that idea, but that actually came into my mind because of this financial situation. And I don't know if the thing, I know recently I was watching 414, which was the last episode of the David Tennant There She Goes, about the not autistic child, it's sort of autistic, it's chromosome disorder, DNKY or something like that, not the fashion people. And I was also watching Michael Sheen. They all seem to compete in these things of doing the same type of things. Her best interests. I've only watched 1 episode of that. Similar thing where this girl, they're fighting for, I don't know if that's based on a true story, but just, they made me so sad. I mean, There She Goes, that 414, I cried so much. And seeing those moments of when David Tennant was on the stair with the child, and he shouts at his son because the girl's trying to bang her head against the wall in the tablet, and he says, "Bite me, I'd rather you bite me than hurt yourself." And because before he's like a bit of a fool, he's always out smoking or drinking to avoid these things. But that moment he tells her to bite him, it's like you see a change in him, and he cries because he doesn't want her to hurt himself, and he's so lost. And I've felt that feeling with Alina and her autism and worry of the future. And then his son, she shouts at his son, they have an argument, he goes and waits on the stairs, and then when it's all done, she gives him an injection of medicine to calm her down. He goes to the stairs, the son comes down and says, "I'm sorry," they cuddle. And I cried then as well when they were hugging each other, because that sheer desperation of a situation they can't control, and that's a bit like life really. And it, even in this as best interest, the idea of having to fight with medical profession to try and keep your child alive. And I've made many of these videos about this in the Pursuit of Truth with real life people. And yet people watch all these things and we still live in the same system that we live within. But it just made me worry about, because we're going through the ehcp and we're going through the draft, and that I thought that would be the great solution to all this, but it doesn't look like it is. It looks like you have to, that they think that the teacher and the TA can do all these things, that they have been failing for a whole year and been telling us we don't have the time, we don't have the funding. And I thought that EHP would put, we need a specific person that you're going to have to employ, the LA and the school will pay for it, and that will look after, a proper teacher who's trained in autism to help Alina and support her as they're meant to under the Disability Act 2010. And that would all happen to EHP, but it seems like it's the same as the graduated process. It's not going to go far enough because probably both sides don't really want to pay the money. And so it's just, listing all the things that need to happen, but they expect the teacher or the TA to do it. I hope that will be the school saying, well, we need more money then because our teacher can't do this. But it just seems like, I thought I was at a solution. I'm not at a solution. I'm at the same problem. No one really wants to solve the problem or fix it. And it made me think of that moment in There She Goes, how difficult it is, and how I was worried about how the future is going to be, how Alina will be, because there are times when she's like that little girl, Rosie, in the program. And the world, even for neurotypicals, is not there for humanity. It's there for those with money and those who don't have to struggle, which the majority of us do, the 1%. All right, I'm running out of video time now. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.